All right. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Serious Angler podcast, episode number 201. As always, I'm your host, Bailey Egbrett, and joined with me is the captain, Mr. Andy Full. What's going on, dude?
Not a whole lot. How about you?
I'm doing all right. Doing pretty good. Now that fish are hungry, they're eating, ice is out in New York, things are heating up. Things are getting right, man. Things are getting right. So it's all is good in the world. We're grinding away, as I know you are as well. We're working towards the dream, but you had a good week last week, dude. Got your first day out on the big pond.
Yeah, it was exciting. Except for I had bad leader material, so I broke off like 5 or 6 bigs. And you knew they were big too because the rock vein we were fishing, it was all smallies, and I would literally pull up on them and start reeling, and it would just head shake pop. And I'm like, my rod was doubled over, so I knew it was a big one. I'm just like, what the heck? So I take off half my leader, tie a good knot, cast out, hook one, catch it, next cast, check it, everything's good, hook them, break. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So I ordered some new leader today, and it's on its way, and I am pumped because next time they're not coming off.
There you go. Heck
yeah. You finally got fishing in too.
I did. Yeah, went out to one of our lakes here and got on some big brown fish, some good green heads, but it's kind of interesting, dude. This time last year, I was dialed on them and was talking with my buddies who was fishing the same place I was, and dude, they were they're really behind right now compared to recent years, and it's kind of cool. Like, it sucks because you're trying to figure them out, and obviously you want to smash on them, but at the same time, it's a lot of fun because you're trying to refine them. You're trying to figure them out. It's something different that these fish are hitting you with, so you're learning to adjust and obviously try to figure out what they're doing. So I'm in the heat of trying to figure out that, where I'm catching a good amount, but not as much as I should, if that makes any sense. So it's
about to go off next
I'm
week.
thinking, I think once we have a couple more warm nights where it gets at least the high 40s, low 50s at night, it's about to be stupid. I think with that delay, it's just going to send a massive wave up, and it's just going to be absolutely mayhem, like every other cast mayhem.
I can't wait for next week. We're in a situation.
It's going to be a lot of fun, buddy. Hopefully. Knock on wood. But we got a bunch of people joining in so far. We got Charles Blood in the comments. Josh Dilly, what's going on, buddy? Dunbar Outdoors. Scott Klein, who's always on here, never misses a show.
Picking on me. It was not sunlight. I'm sorry to disappoint you. So it was not sunlight.
Yeah, Scott said fish are behind in Virginia as well, too. It's interesting. It's kind of been the trend I've but been talking to people all over the place. It seems like fish are behind for the most part.
Well, we start getting warm, and then we have a major cold front come through. I think we're just about over it, though.
Warren Beard as well, always in the show. But yeah, dude, it was a good day today. I registered for the Bass Nation Kayak National Championship down in Texas.
Nice.
So pretty pumped, pretty excited for that. As people might not even know, I plan on doing a video series for that, for the travel down as well as the stay there, because for those who don't know, is that Kayak National Championships in conjunction with the Bassmaster Classic. So top 10 from that make it to the Bassmaster Classic stage, part of the show. It's going to be pretty wicked cool. And obviously that's been something I've been thinking about, obviously, since a little kid. So I can't afford a big bass boat. I can't afford, travel from the bass boat realm, but to be able to do it from a kayak is kind of cool. That low cost, being able to chase the dream, and potentially $50,000 depending on how many guys sign up. So that could be.
So here's the deal, right? You win, then you can buy a bass boat.
If I win and it's $50,000, that's going to all my student loans first. So I don't have to worry about those anymore.
Just make sure you hold back 30% for taxes.
That's playing it safe.
New York State, 30%.
Yeah. But another thing I have noted here is Sabine River is coming up this week. So folks, if you have not put your fantasy picks in yet, make sure you guys are doing that. We just uploaded our preview video last week, so you guys can go check that out, get kind of a predictions and what we're thinking is coming for that one. So you can check that out. As well as tonight, as always, we are giving away 2 bags of Outdoorsman coffee. We will be selecting a winner who's for people who are pumping out good questions, as well as we are going to put a question on Mr. Jeff Queen to choose for us tonight. So Jeff Queen's favorite question, he will be choosing a winner for that as well. I see him down there chuckling. He's probably pissed that we put him on the spot, but it's going to be fun nonetheless. But tonight we have a really fun show. Obviously, it's in the South. They're starting to get some fish on beds, getting the heat of the spawn, and it's slowly working its way north, and we are all very excited for that time frame. So who better to have on than Mr. Jeff Queen, who many have given high praise for his sight fishing abilities. So tonight's going to be a lot of fun. And I think one more note for folks that are tuning in tonight, if you have to leave a certain into a certain part of the show and you're not able to witness or watch the rest, we do have these shows on the MP3 podcast platform. You guys can check it out and listen to the rest. I want to mention that. But I think without further ado, Andrew, we need to get on our guest here. Mr. Jeff Queen, what's going on, sir?
Hey, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good to be here.
Real quick, Charles Blood in the comments said he's going to sell me his Skeeter for $5,000. I think it's a good deal.
Yeah.
If it's running.
Yeah. For $5,000, you can put a motor on there.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Well, dude, Jeff, first things first, how you been? And also, is KJ alive and not getting eaten by alligators down there on Sabine?
He's alive. I was not able to talk to him today. He's in a part of the Sabine that didn't have any reception. So all day long, I've not had a chance yet to talk to him. But he's living the life. They actually got 4 days of practice down there. So he's doing some scouting around, getting hung up on logs, and trying to find that Sabine bass. I think it's going to be a nice little challenge for him. But he's catching a few. That's all I'll say. He's catching a few.
That's good. I think it's going to be a challenge for a lot of. I mean, I don't think it's a challenge to catch a bass. I think it's keeper bass that's going to be.
Yeah. There's it's just hard to get that 3 pound plus bite down there, and that's the real challenge. How do you go find that 2.5, 3 pounder? And I don't think there's a lot of them in there, so that's a real challenge. So
right. Yeah, so real quick, what was the deal with the 4 days of practice? Is that because of the off limits and switching back the dates and guys?
It is, yeah. So they told all of them that they really didn't like putting it on Easter Sunday. They really don't like doing that, but they felt like they really had to this time because when they moved Pickwick, it took all the practice time away from going to the Sabine. So there were several pros that were planning on being on the Sabine, learning how to navigate it. It's really difficult to navigate. They were planning on learning how to navigate it and didn't get any time down there. And it's a lot of them's first time. So they decided to go ahead and extend it out and give them a 4th day if they wanted to go out on Easter Sunday. So
it's good.
Yeah,
good.
So it's not bad at all.
Guys can kind of get used to it and learn how to run it, and because it can be a dangerous place from
it can be, and it's bass is pretty reasonable. They really try to accommodate the fishermen the best they can. So
fair enough.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, obviously tonight's topic is sight fishing, going after fish on bed, and I understand this is a very fun topic for you to talk about, and it's something that I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, is in your strong suit.
It definitely is. I've won a lot of money looking at them over the years. That's probably my strongest time of the year is in the spring when they just start to move up. Is when I like it, when there's not many of them and they're just starting. They're real spooky still. That's the funnest time of all.
Right. I'm excited to ask you different questions because one, I think it's a whole different realm down there, obviously, than up here because a lot of our spawn is brown fish, and they're probably the dumbest fish on the planet and the easiest to catch.
Yeah.
You could use a bare hook and catch those things off bed. So it's just one of those things where I'm very curious because I would love to learn tonight, as I know the folks are, Andrew as well. But obviously you're in the Carolinas, so are you predominantly fishing for bed fishing for largemouth still, or are you mixing in spotted bass as well?
Yeah. So when we here on Lake Norman, we got a lot of large spotted bass. When I sight fish, most of the time I'm not going to target the spots, and the reason is the female spots will come in and you'll see them on a bed, and within 24 hours they're gone. They spawn really fast. Now the bucks will still be there, but you can't win with the little buck bass. You've got to go for large ones. So, if you're just going out there for fun fishing, or if you didn't get any practice time, you hadn't found anything, spots are perfect to go for, because they're kind of like a smallmouth. They'll bite really easy. But overall, I'm going to target the greenheads. They're more stable. You can find them. They're going to be there from 3 to 5 days, and you got a shot of coming back and catching them.
Right.
Yep.
So to kind of start things off, you're not even in the water yet. You haven't put the boat in the water. Are there any kind of visual, or maybe some, you're looking at the weather forecast, any kind of cues to know when the spawn is going to even start?
Yeah, so it's a little bit different on every lake. If the lakes are like the Tennessee River, they're going to be a lot later, and they'll base it on like water fluctuations, not even as much about temperature of the water. But if it's like a Lake Norman, or one of these lakes, it's got it's a real stable level, pretty much stable. It's all about the moon phase and the water temp. And as soon as that water temp's above 53, 54, and that moon hits that new moon or a full moon, they're there. There's some up, you can go catch them. Once it gets up to about 65, you get a big wave that comes in. Trouble is now everybody sights fish. It used to be a lot easier. And so I don't like the big wave. I like it when it's just real scattered yet. And that, people think, oh, it's not happening yet. And it's like, yep, it's happening. You just don't know it yet. That's when you can really cash in a lot of times at your tournaments. Right.
Now, a question here. I know this is actually it's been highly debated, and I think it's going to be debated for a long time, is there's the conversation of, do fish only need time of year and moon, or do they need water temperatures at a certain warmth, like at a certain level? Or are you a believer that the temperatures have to be at a certain degree, or do you think it just at time of year and moon phase, when those fish want to go, they're going to go?
Yeah, so I would say it's a combination of a lot of those, and anybody can debate it, but it really is about, I think it depends on the body of water, right? I can see them spawn at 75 degrees on Tennessee River. It's just a matter of that water's going up and down, but if it happens to anywhere above 60 degrees, that water comes up and stabilizes on that third day, man, they're gone. They're right up there, and they spawn really fast. Lake Norman, it is really about water temp and moon phase there. I mean, it truly is. And then, as you go up north, it's going to change. Down south, you go to Florida, it's all about when does it cool off enough from the spawn. That's why they spawn at, sometimes as early as December, they'll be spawning. It finally cools down enough in December, the fish will actually come up and spawn based on the water cooling off, not actually heating up like we think of. The further north you go, it's all about when does it heat up enough.
Yeah.
Right.
Down south, it's all about, the further south you go, it's all about when does it cool off enough. They'll come in to spawn the cool water.
That's super interesting.
Yep. That's why Florida is really crazy. You really want that. You think, oh, that cooler temperature is coming in Florida, and it's like, that might be good. It might actually bring them up there. It's a little bit different down there.
Something a little bit more comfortable for them.
Yep, a little bit more comfortable. And these highland reservoirs are really interesting too. They're the ones that always trick me the most, where you're, within a week you get this 5-foot swing up and down, and that's just crazy. I mean, you go back in a bay and it's dry, and then the next time you go out there 2 days later, it's nice 3 foot of water around every bush, and somehow they show up there and you can catch them. But it's those highland reservoirs are the toughest to me. Especially the ones that are fluctuating a lot. I mean, a heck of a lot. And then those tide lakes are tough too, right? That's crazy fishing around them tide lakes.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah, and that was something, and that's a topic I wanted to bring up here in a little bit, was, spawners, when that water, like especially on like a TVA, where they're constantly fluctuating that water, bringing it up or dropping it, and what that can do to those fish. But we're going to get to that in a little bit, because the next step is, so you see that conditions, there's a new moon or a full moon, temperatures are kind of getting right. You put the boat in. Where are you going to start looking for these fish in general? Obviously, every lake is kind of different in its own right, but in general, what locations are you going to start looking for these fish? And are you looking specifically just visually, or are you throwing a bait around and visually looking with your eyes, looking for these fish up shallow?
Yes, if I haven't been out there in practice, right, and I'm kind of going blind, I'm going to probably start and look for where that water's just got a little bit of dinge to it. The real clear water, that's where everybody's going to go, and they're going to pick them off pretty fast in that super clear water. So I want to go where it's just starting to dinge up a little bit, and they're a little bit tougher to see. But and I think that dingy water will heat up a little faster too, right? So I want to be in that water that's heating up just a little sooner than that real clear. And so a lot of people start in the very, very clear water, and that's where they'll start. But I don't like that. I'm going to go up, but I don't want to go way up in the river because it gets too cold, right? So most of the lakes around here are river fed or stream fed. So I don't want to go way back in there. I want to stay in the coves and the pockets that are pretty protected, and then look for that little bit of dinge in the water, not a lot, but enough that I can do. And then when I'm going to search, if I'm just going down the bank, I'm going to put on a fluke or a mag draft or something like that, and I'm going to just fish it fairly fast across the top, get that reaction, then I'll slow down and I'll catch that fish.
Mm-hmm. And you're probably looking for that slight dinge as well, because those fish are probably going to eat a little faster, right?
They will. It's a whole lot better. Once you figure out that fish is over there, it's a lot easier to turn around and catch that fish. In that clear water, especially around here now, a lot of people sight fish. So those fish in that clear water, that's where everybody goes, and they're picking them off during the week and stuff, come tournament day, and they're so spooky and hard to catch. And so I'm change it up just a little bit, try to put the advantage in my favor.
Right. We had a question quick here. I think it's good to bring up now from Jay Russell here. And he says, when targeting fish on beds, do you find they prefer a moving bait or just trying to drop the bait on the bed? And I think that's something you kind of touched on there, was that you're starting with a moving bait to find them on bed. Yep. And then you're going to turn around and slow down, like you mentioned, and actually put something into that bed.
Yeah. And it's interesting. If you've got, like, if it's a calm, slick day, you're going to have to stay back from that bed. You're going to slow down your presentations. You got to drop that line size, and you're going to fish, some kind of shaky head, some kind of little small, tiny jig, something like that. If it's like a cloudy, windy day, I'm going to go with a jig, right? I'm going to put on some kind of swim jig. The big females will bite a lot better, and they just, you don't have to be as finessey as what a lot of people think. You can cover a lot more water with that jig, but that's only on those cloudy, kind of windy days that you can do that.
Right. So now I want to go back to the question I said we're going to bring up later. So say you're on a system like the TVA, something that fluctuates. So say you go out, conditions are kind of what you think they are, right? Setting up for the spawn, moon phase is right, temperatures are getting right. And, you might not have been checking the TVA app and they brought the water down, which obviously any fish up shallow, for the most part, is a big no-no.
Right.
How are you adjusting to something like that? Are you not even going to go try to find fish on bed, or what's your mindset when it comes to that?
Yeah, you just got to be mindful about that, exactly where that water's at. And I'll be honest, I'm going to watch that water depth, a week before. I'm already looking at Douglas every day right now, right? Looking to see what's that water doing on Douglas. So whenever I get there, I'm going to know, has it risen or is it fallen? And where's that going to put those fish at? And that is so critical. People don't do their homework. They show up. Those guys that's doing their homework, they're 2 steps ahead of them already. If it's falling but not too fast, they're going to move to the edge of the bushes. They're going to still be there. If it's falling fast, I'm going to pull back out to the points, and I'm not even going to try to sight fish. Right? It's not even worth it.
Right. What's up, Kyle? We got Kyle in the chat here. What's going on, Kyle? Yeah, I think something to add on that too, that we're talking about it, and I was thinking about it. If something like that, if you're going to try to sight fish, you're probably going to try to find something with a creek or something that has a flat that's a little bit less likely to fluctuate, where it might fluctuate at a micro level versus something like a shallower creek that'll fluctuate at a much higher level.
Yeah, and if it's fluctuating, it's funny. Those fish will still spawn on those steeper banks. They'll still be there. So if it's a lot of fluctuation, I'm looking for steeper banks for them to spawn on. If it's minor fluctuations, I'm looking for more like the button bushes, the willow trees, those type of things. And it's different on every lake, but Lake Norman, they're always going to use the docks. It's going to be the same. They spawn every year on the same dock post. It's the ones, if they've got rocks or they're right there where it's just they got a little sandy gravel bottom. It's as much to do with the bottom contour or the bottom composition as it is about where you're at. If I go into a creek and it's silted in, it's kind of muddy and all, I'm not even going to spend time looking there. I want to find that gravel, that sand, a little bit of hard bottom.
Clean area.
Yeah, got to be clean. Right. It's exactly right. Andrew's got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that's kind of talked about up here, and I've kind of relatively found it to be true, at least for smallmouth, is that the bigger fish tend to spawn deeper. Now, I know for largemouth, I found that doesn't apply. I'll find bigs up dirt shallow. But I think in terms of spotted bass is what I'm really curious about is, do you find that in general that spotted bass spawn deeper, or does that kind of that theme apply as well that bigger fish will spawn deeper?
Yeah, they'll spawn deep. They'll go, up to about 10 foot deep. I've caught them. Places that before I didn't even think they were spawning, but now that you've got that, forward-looking sonar, you can actually see them on beds now, and you can catch them fishing for them off the beds. You have no idea he's there. You're just catching them off of beds on the sonar, and you'll actually see him come down on the bait, looking at the bait on the sonar. You're fishing for them.
Oh, jeez.
It's
see
crazy.
That angle of them just kind of.
Yep, you'll see it. You'll actually see them hit and then swim out, and before you even feel them hit it, and it's like, oh my God, he's got it. And, once you get used to that, it's that's a whole game changer too. Changes how you do it in the dingy water. You can go a lot dingier water, and especially areas that, I've been doing it for so long. It's like I know he's under this dock right here, and it's like it's like, yep, look right there. There's his bed, and you just. It's you got to sight fish for him though. He's on a bed, so it takes a little bit more patience, a little bit. But once he's there, then it's he's in the boat.
Yeah. It's kind of similar to like when you're sight fishing up shallow and you're working a fish. You look away for the 1 second, and it's always that 1 second. You look away, you look back. That fish is swimming off. You're like, oh, he's swimming away, and your line's like. Going like, oh, he's then you usually miss him after that.
Every time, yeah.
But Andrew, in terms of the Great Lakes, what is the deepest fish that you've caught that you think was spawning that was on bed?
18.
Wow,
That's
deep. That is deep.
And the only reason why, when I caught him in the morning, the water was a little dingy for whatever reason. I think it rained or there was big waves the day before. But as the sunlight came out, it was slick, calm. That water really calmed down and got super clear. And where I caught him, you can see down parts in Erie, like 18, 20, 25 foot. And all I saw was a little light spot around all this dark gravel. I'm like, that's where I caught him. That's about it.
That's him. Yep. Wow. That's deep.
But like 18 foot, it looked like this, like the top of the cup. Down so far deep, but it's like, yep, that was a bet.
Yep. Yeah. Deep here is like 6 to 8 feet, right? If you're catching them 6 to 8 feet, you're a little deeper than most people. Most people looking up there in that 2 to 4.
Yep.
And, so that's it. You can find them out there in that 6 to 8. You're pretty good at sighting them here.
Oh yeah.
I asked that because I saw. Probably, I want to say it was 2 years ago, a guy posted a picture of his side imaging, and he was in 23 foot, and you just saw on the side that they're just beds, and they're tiny little circles, and you see them glowing inside of it. It's crazy. It's kind of nuts when you talk about how it varies from different bodies of water.
Yeah.
But we have a question here from Charles Blood, and it says, when it comes to finding bedding areas, where are you going first? Are you going to the back of creeks or little coves closer to the main lake? Good question, Charles.
Yeah, and that really depends on the species, right? If it's largemouth, I'm going to the back. They're going to go, most of them are going to be back. where that water's a little bit calmer. Them smallies, they're crazy. They get out there on that doggone main channel points. In fact, there's a little lake around here called Lake James. It's a little mountain lake, and I won like every year. There's a big tournament up there, and I won it like 5 years in a row. And everybody would go to the back of the coves, and the big smallies would all be out just right for me. So I'd go out on the points, and it's just like you just sight fish them off the point. You know, you're bringing in 20 plus pounds. Now everybody's figured out that's where they're at, so it's a lot harder. You can't do it anymore. But but yeah, it used to be just too easy. It's like yeah, it's like everybody's looking for them up there in that shallow water. That's not where they're at. First time I ever was there, and this is years and years ago. The way I found that, I'm going down the bank myself looking, and I see a smallmouth run out from under my boat and chase a brim, and then it goes back out. Swims right back under my boat, and I turn around and watch him. I follow him back out, and he goes out about 10 feet behind me. I'm like, okay, them boys live out there. They don't live up here. So the largemouths are up shallow, but them big smallies were back behind us, and that's how me and my dad got on them years ago, and we put a hurting on them for years before everybody figured out that's where they live.
Yeah. So a general rule of thumb with smallmouth is if there's enough light penetration to heat and activate that bottom, they'll spawn to 20, 25 foot as long as they have enough sunlight on that bottom. Yeah. Just enough. They just need sunlight to whatever it is, like procure the eggs for them to hatch.
It's very cool.
Yeah, it is. That's cool.
Yeah. I was just going to mention. Oh, yeah. So I'm assuming because they're on those main lake points that those are fish that are essentially they're too lazy to take the time to go back into creeks. They're just going up because they want to do their business and then get gone.
Yeah, I don't know. Them smallmouth up around here, they always spawn best on the main channels. I don't go up there.
That's silt.
Yeah, it's a lot less silt, and it's it's clear water out on the main versus the little feeder creeks, and so you try to target the largemouth back in the backs, but I'm going to hit those smallmouth out on the main channel. That's where the big girls will be at. That's
a great point, and I think that's something I actually neglected in my questions here was how important that bottom composition is.
Yeah.
It's finding that hard bottom versus something that's muddy.
Yep, definitely. 100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's see. We have a question here from Warren Beard, and it's a two-parter, and it says, do you use sunglasses? And without none of us need to really answer this, since with that 1,000% yes, sunglasses.
Well, gotta have sunglasses.
Sunglasses are very imperative. And real quick, we have some stuff in the works talking about sunglasses, and we'll announce coming up here soon. But there is kind of, and Jeff, I want to pick your brain on this too, is if you play around with your lens colors for the conditions, like copper when it's low light, and obviously like a blue or a black for when the sun is high. What's kind of your general rule of thumb?
Yes, I never really go with the grays or the blacks or even the blues. I tend to stay lighter. I'll go like a real light yellow if the sun's out, and even if the sun's in. I want like a sunrise yellow, something like that is typically what I use most of the time. There are some greens. So I use different brands as well, which is kind of crazy. If me and KJ is fishing a tournament together, he'll have one brand on, I'll have a different brand. He'll have a yellow lens, I'll have a green lens. And it's amazing. He'll see certain fish and I'll see certain fish that the other one didn't pick up. And it's, I don't know. It's just how the fish shows up.
I don't know if this can actually see the lens color here. But it's
yeah, that looks good. Yeah.
Like a yellow amber. Is that?
Yep. Yeah, amber. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I give a clue to people that lens color is called Sightmaster. So if you know
it is.
If you know your brands, then you can kind of get a clue as to what's coming up here soon. And trust me, it'll be good for you guys as well, because a lot of cool stuff is in the works to give back to the fans. But Warren's other question here is the two-parter is, do you move your boat to help use the sun to see them? And I think that's something good to note is, and I wanted to get your opinion, Jeff, is because I don't know if I'm crazy, but essentially I work with the sun to my front. because I have a thing where it's, at least for largemouth, that if my shadow is in front of me, that those fish will spook a lot easier. Is that something that you find applies to your game as well?
Yeah, definitely. You know, you don't want that shadow to touch that fish at all, ever. I'm going to try to keep the boat as far back as I can. Typically, I'm going to fish for the fish before I ever go up and look at it. But then, if you don't get him in the first 4 or 5 casts, it's like, okay, I got to go see, is that fish there? And it helps if you can see him. But I'm going to stay as far back as I can and keep that sun right in front of me or to my side. I don't want that shadow to touch him at all.
Thank you. That's a great point there, Warren.
Sean
Perkins is in the chat. What's going on, Sean? Charles Blood says, when you're working a bed, do you use a Texas rig, jig, and why? And I think, we kind of covered that a little bit, but I think this kind of leads me to my next question for you is, do you have any baits that you're willing to kind of cough up a little bit that might trick those finicky largemouth to commit a little bit faster than working it for hours on end, like you hear about it notoriously?
Yeah, so I'm extremely, over the years I've experimented with a lot of things. My favorite by far is a shaky head that I created, really, and it's a tungsten shaky head. It's a 3/8 ounce. It's got a little rattle in the top. It's called a hammer shake. The reason I created that was, first off, the hook in it's a 5/0 thin wire hook. So I want to be able to pull through that bait really easy. I want to have a big gap there. I want to still be able to put like a little crawl worm or a little worm on it, but yet the hook doesn't overpower the bait, right? And then that little bitty rattle is important in there, that little tiny clicking noise. Tungsten head. I prefer a shaky head. The reason I prefer a shaky head, I've fished for so many years where you throw up there and you're using, just a regular sinker and your hook. And that fish sometimes will pick that bait up and you never feel it, right? And that sucker will swim off 3 foot out of the bed before you ever feel that thing. You don't feel him, tonk or hit it or anything. And so I'm going to try. I like a shaky head because the second he touches that with that tungsten shaky head, I feel that fish touch it. And I'll give him just a second to make sure he's got it in there and I can set that hook. Last thing you want him to do is grab that bait. And I had this happen for years. They will grab it up by the pinchers or something, and then they're swimming out away from you. And you'll feel that thing, and then you'll go to set the hook after he gets a bad angle, and you'll hook him right under here. And, of course, in a tournament that's not inside the mouth, you're going to take that fish, you're going to let him back loose, and you're going to fry all the way back to the scales. So I really prefer a jig or a shaky head just simply because I can feel that bite when it happens. He's not going to get a bad angle on me. I'm going to be able to set that hook, and and I want to be able to feel him immediately. And so that to me is super important because that bedding fish is not going to hold that bait very long. You've got about 6 to 10 seconds, somewhere in that range. You want to wait about 3 or 4 seconds and then set that hook. But you wait about 10 seconds, that thing's going to carry it right out of his head and spit it out. And once he does that, that next cast better be perfect, or you're sitting there for another 20, 30 minutes trying to make him bite. He gets super smart after he touches that bait. And he's fired up after he touches that first time. But if you don't make a perfect cast right back, or you sit there and you have to fix your bait back up, you're looking at 20 minutes to fire him back up. And so I want to make sure as soon as he touches it, I got him in the boat and I'm off to my next fish. It's super important in a tournament not to waste that first bite. That first bite is precious in a tournament.
Yeah. It's got to be kind of, from experience as well, I'm always kind of scared to set the hook if I don't know, especially if I haven't seen him eat it, and if it's in dirtier water and you don't know. Because for that rule, exactly. If you're fun fishing, if you snag it, it sucks. But at the same time, it's like, it doesn't cost you anything. Whereas in a derby, you're like, granted, our local trails, it doesn't matter. I don't think they even have the rules in local trails to throw them back. But it's one of those things where it's like, at least for me, and it's kind of nice from the kayak realm of things, is you're less intrusive. You don't really have any noise going. If you're running a graph while you're sight fishing, you probably should change the way you do that. Probably should turn those off. But Well, the nice thing about the kayak is you can get relatively close to the fish without it really him knowing or her knowing that you're there. So, like, a lot of times for me, it's at least up here in the northern waters because they're clear with the largemouth, I literally don't really set the hook until I literally watch that fish put it in its mouth, and then I'll crack it. I usually don't set the hook off the feel, at least for me, personally.
Yeah.
But it's
if I'm sitting there watching it, but the fish down here are pressured so much and so finicky, it's really hard to watch them anymore. You're having to back off and almost get where you can't see that fish. I mean, you might see it, but you really can't watch it eat the baits anymore. You have to be far enough back that you can tell the fish is up there. You know your bait's in the right place, but you really have to go by that feel. Otherwise, you get up there close, that fish gets so finicky now and so scared. I mean, they just won't bite unless you got bucks that'll bite, but I'm talking about that female. That's that kicker fish.
Especially if it's already been fished for too.
Yeah.
And that's 2 different regions. Yeah. 2 different fish. Go ahead, Andy. Sorry.
How many times have you had one eat the tail of the shaky head, like right below the hook point where it carves, and you lean into them and you just get half your worm back and it doesn't even penetrate the hook?
Yep. I've had that. Like there was a big one I had, like it was over 5 pounds, and it bit the pinchers off 6 times in a row and 6 consecutive casts. 7th cast, I put it in the boat, but golly, you talk about nerve wracking. You feel it hit, and it's like got it. You jerk back, and both pinchers are gone. It's like throw back,
because they'll just
one pincher gone. It's like
grab it, swim away.
Yep, they're smart. They can grab it right by them pinchers, and so.
Here's a question. For when you're bed fishing, do you prefer scented baits or unscented baits?
Oh, I 100% scented. I go scented.
Can't use that max scent anymore on MLF.
Yeah, I seen that. That's pretty cool. Biz baits, Berkeley baits, any of those scented baits are really good. I want that scented bait. I'm going to use sprays. Typically, the best one, my secret for years, was Trigger X, and they don't make it anymore. That stuff was awesome, awesome stuff.
I was about to write notes.
Yeah, well, it had pheromone in it, and you could anytime those fish were spawning, it didn't matter if it was bass bedding or on brim beds. You could hit that stuff with that Trigger X stuff and throw it over there. They'd come swimming out to eat that stuff. But and if they ever touched it or tasted it, man, they go crazy. They'd hit it 5, 6, 7 times in a row. But I think I used up my last bottle last year. I had when they went out of didn't stop making, I went and bought cases of it, and I've used my last bit up. So
that's funny.
So I'm hoping somebody will make some really good pheromone spray, but I don't know if anyone makes any today that's really good.
Well, there you go, folks. There's a business idea for anybody out there who knows.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Just don't keep it too big of a secret. Nobody will buy it. Trigger X was the best, man. It was the best ever.
I was not a fan of their baits, but the scent was stinky. Like, it was good.
Yeah, it was good. And it was awesome on brim beds and sight fishing. It was the ticket.
Isn't that an interesting concept, how there's a lot of baits out there that they aren't in production anymore because they were so good that people didn't tell people about?
Yeah.
It's a common trend that you see, and it sucks.
It does. It does. It's like you got something, it's like, I know this is the best, but I don't tell anybody.
Yeah. And then you get the email, it's no longer in production. You're like, son.
God, eBay, buy every bottle off eBay, or buy every lure that you can find off of eBay, and it's crazy.
Here's a little sneaky bait for folks that I found at least works faster for me up north for largemouth. Sometimes we can get some tricky largemouth, especially if they've been fished for already. I take a Tokyo rig, and what I do is what I'll do is I'll add a tiny, really light lead bullet weight to that Tokyo rig, and I'll slide it up nose first, pointing up, and then what I'll do is I'll take my queen tackle tungsten, and I'll put that on bottom so the nose, so it's pointed down, so that the flat sides are connecting. So what I do is after that, when you bend it around and you have it in the bed and you're knocking slack in the line, that lead and that tungsten are clacking against each other.
Got that little clack.
Yeah. I'll flip grass with that too. That's a little juicy piece. I don't know if it's juicy or not, but it seemed to work for me.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Else I found so.
Yeah, if you got that old nasty grass on the bottom, that old snot grass is what we call it around here. It's nice to have that little drop shot type rig, little Tokyo rig or something. Keep it just right up above that stuff, right?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. You bring up the snot grass is the time that a lot of our largemouth, at least from a northern standpoint, because I've never been down south in the spawn time, is when things obviously are getting hotter, things are warming up, and what we kind of have, and Andy can attest to this too, is that we kind of get like an algae bloom around the same time that a lot of these fish come up to spawn. So some people will go into areas that, and I've been out with a buddy before, and like, oh, this looks like crap, let's get out of here. Just because it looks like crap doesn't mean that they won't spawn in it.
Right.
If they have that bottom composition, they're still going to spawn. They're going to get up there, do their business, and get out. And that's where that Tokyo rig works, is when all that algae crap, you'll get up and you see one on the bed, and it's sitting in algae, and you can keep that bait right on top of it.
That's the other thing I was going to say with that algae. It's real defined where they're at, too, because you'll just see, like, this lime green, and all of a sudden, big clear circle. You're like... And then the black shadow, you're like, oh, there he is.
Yeah. And that's what's so cool too about like these slick, calm, sunny days is like, especially if you're in shallower water, those fish glow. Like, and you can see them hovering near the surface from hundreds of yards away. Like, okay, I shouldn't say hundreds of yards, that's kind of a stretch, but you kind of get my point. In that clear water, they're pretty easy to pick up.
Yeah, we were up on St. Lawrence, and you could literally see them like way out, like 30, 40 yards out. And it was like, who's going to make that first cast to it? Because you knew whoever hit that bed first was going to catch that big smallie.
You don't even have to hit the bed. You can be within like 6 to 12 inches on each side, and whatever side that fish is pointing, they eat it.
I loved it. All the guys were fishing like little drop shot rigs and stuff. I had my big jig tied on up there, and I'd be like, I see a bed out there, and I can outcast them to it. And that is hitting that jig every time. It was just easy. I loved it. Both flipping big smallies.
It's a blast.
Like, it is.
I thoroughly enjoy going with like 20-pound fluoro and like a 3/8 ounce rig, and just something that's obnoxious that you would never throw, like big green chartreuse tails to it and black body or a white body. You're just like, all right, I'm 20 feet away. I kind of see them throw it up there, and they'll come right off the bed and grab it. It's
not that easy down here, believe me. It's a whole different game. Them boys were fishing the St. Lawrence when the college guys were up there. I'm walking the shoreline, catching 20-pound bags, just walking the shoreline. You know, it's like, okay, this don't happen back home. That's just yeah. You guys are spoiled up there. That's no doubt. Y'all got some awesome fisheries.
They are the dumbest fish, but they are probably one of the most fun fish. Andrew took myself and my dad out last year, and I've never heard my dad laugh like that ever before. Watching these smallmouth, it's pretty fun. But
now, one of the tricks that we got on the St. Lawrence when they were up there, we found that the biggest ones spawned in front of the reeds. Like if you found reeds like out in front of them, like 5 to 15 yards out in front of the reeds, you'd see the bigger smallmouth. I don't know if that was just a freak accident, but I mean, we would start running the banks looking just for the reeds. And where you found those reeds out in front of them would be the biggest smallmouth. I mean, you'd find the 5 and 6s out there. I don't know if y'all ever got on that up there.
Was it like right on the channel?
Well, it'd be back just in any little cuts or coves or anything like that. But if you found the reeds, it seemed like for some reason they would always be bigger smallmouth out in front of them. I don't know.
I wonder if it's because they're like with those reeds and stuff, there might be like a spring in the area, so the water could be a little cooler or a little warmer.
Yeah. I didn't know if it's like where the small fish went up in there, and I don't know. I just didn't know why it was that. I didn't know if it was a bottom composition thing or if it was a spring but you could definitely tell the bigger ones would be in wherever you found those reeds out in front of them, they'd be bigger smallmouth. Like you'd see 3-pounders everywhere, but you find a little patch of reeds along the bank and there'd be a 5 out in front of it. Kind of interesting.
You could get really deep into thought about it and say that the bigger smallmouth just wanted a place for their
For the little ones, yeah.
Natural selection.
You're always trying to find that pattern within a pattern, right? Whenever you're looking at certain things, and that just seemed like that was a pattern within the pattern on the St. Lawrence. They were all, when the college teams went out, they were all within that one body. They couldn't lock through. So they all got stuck there at Waddington in the one area, in that one pool. And, KJ had like 245 over 3 pounds marked on the beds. And they were like almost all gone after day one. 84th place, I think, was 20 pounds.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
That's incredible.
I think what was crazier about that was that St. Lawrence University that was on the St. Lawrence was like last place because they went for largemouth for some reason.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, it's too many big 4 or 5 pounders swimming everywhere. Yeah, KJ caught 23 pounds in his first 5 minutes and never set the hook on another one, thinking, man, I got 23 pounds, I'm good. He comes in, he's like 25th place or something with 23 pounds. He's like, okay, I got some work to do tomorrow. It's crazy.
Right. That's a good point when you talk about marking them on the graph, because that's leading into one of our questions here. But before we get into that one from Kyle Schmidt, he's got 2 really good questions for you. Is how long you will work on a bedfish before you kind of give up and move on to the next one?
Yeah, that's a really good question. If it's first thing out of the gate of a morning, I'm not going to give a fish more than 30 minutes, which is still a long time, right? But if I'm sitting there and I'm looking at a 5-pounder and I'm like, okay, you got about 30 minutes, and then I'm going to have to leave you. If it's, if I've caught a limit and I'm sitting there looking at a 9-pounder like I was on Eufaula 2 years ago, I spent 4 hours on it. Right?
Oh my God.
Yeah. It was in a tree stump in a big old cypress tree roots, and I couldn't make good cast to it, but it was literally about 9 pounds. I had 13 pounds in the boat, and I'm like, a 9-pounder calls one of those 2-pounders, and I'm like seriously high in the money.
Yeah.
The sucker never did bite. I spent 4 hours on it. It never did bite. I never could get the right presentation to it. It was just too far down it would sink down. I couldn't see it, but then it would rise up and swim all the way around the tree, and it looked like an absolute behemoth of a bass. It might have been double digits. I mean, it was just a tank. And then it would go back and it would settle right down in them roots. And he's there and you're throwing right in there, but I just couldn't get the right presentation to make him bite. But it's not uncommon for me to spend 2 or 3 hours on a single fish. I mean, that's you see that 5-pounder, that's 5 pounds in the boat. You better put him in the boat.
Yeah. So being smart with your time, especially from a tournament situation.
It's
like if you don't have a fish yet, probably don't want to spend that much time. But when you have a limit,
I can't kill a tournament on that first one, but I'm gonna still give it 30 minutes. But that's about it. And then after that, I'm gonna run. And and it depends too on how the fish is acting, right? If that fish is you throw up there and it spooks out and it don't come back for 10 minutes, no, there's no need in spending a lot of time. But
yeah,
are you throwing that thing's locked down? It's gonna go in the boat.
Are you throwing up there right away, or are you taking a second to kind of see how it's behaving before you even cast a bait at it?
No, I'm casting way before I ever see the fish. I'm going to make 10 casts before I ever look at the fish.
So you have it like on your GPS, and you're like, okay, there's a bed right there, before you even know it's okay.
Yeah, I carry a notebook. Every detail is written down, exactly what cast I'm making, from what angle, from how far back. Every single detail is written out, exactly how to catch that fish. Yep.
Mike B says, my Binsky blades arrived today. What am I buying during this stream? You're buying some Queen tackle, son. That's what you're buying in this stream. Code below will save you 20%. Selfless plugs tonight, boys.
Yeah, no doubt.
But so Kyle Schmidt had this really good question, and it's going back to KJ talking about waypointing fish that are on bed. And I think this is an interesting question, and it says, do you catch a fish on the bed prior to a derby, or do you just guesstimate the size? And really fast before you answer it is, I know of guys up north, because smallmouth being the dumb fish that they are on bed, guys will go and catch the bigger ones that they see on bed, weigh it, and they will mark on their graph what it weighs so that they can more efficiently time manage their tournament day.
Yeah. And I thought that was a joke until we were up north and the guys were literally catching them, writing them down in the notebook, and then showing me the night before the tournament. It's like, yeah, look, I've got 22 pounds I'm going to go catch first thing off the bed. Here's the 5. And, if they don't bite, here's my next one, and it weighs 5.2, and this one weighs 4.9. I'm like, how do you know it weighs like 0.9? I weighed it on my scales. I'm like, you caught them fish? I would never catch those fish. It's like, I don't want to touch those fish.
But that's the funniest part is you can just cycle back through them all day long and keep catching them.
Crazy.
They're so tough.
That is crazy. But those fish are crazy up there. I mean, they are literally. I caught one off the bank in the tournament that would have went a little over 4 pounds, right? And I just catch it. I'm taking a selfie with it. I let it back loose. It swims right back and gets on the bed. And here comes one of the college boats in. And he's coming down through there just looking for it during the tournament. And he gets almost over the top of the fish and he sees it. He goes, oh my God, there's a big one, like over 4 pounds. He says, drop the poles. Well, his partner drops the poles. And I'm sitting on the bank now watching him. He drops the poles right in the bed. And I'm like, what the heck? He ain't going to catch that fish. Now he's done screwed it up. And they're looking around the boat for the fish everywhere. And his partner says, man, it's swimming around the power pole. And they sit there and they fish for it and catch it off the dang power pole. I'm like, no, that is a crazy fish. And it didn't take him but like 3 casts. He's like, I got him, netted him up.
All mad. He's like, what is this thing?
I'm like, I just caught that fish, seen it, let it back loose. He drops a power pole in the bed and still catches it. I said, no, this is not the way it's supposed to work.
That fish was probably trying to eat that power pole. It
was mad. It's swimming around, I'm sitting there watching them just thinking, oh my God, these guys are rookies. No, they knew exactly what they were doing. They would not do that back here. I'm just promise you that would be gone fish.
You're not going to eat my Senko. I'm going to give you a power pole.
Yeah. Just dropping the power pole in the bed and fishing right around. That's crazy.
That'd be a heck of a plug right there. Could even catch spawners.
Yeah. Drop it down in the bed. That's insane.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so talking about your fish then, are you even casting at your bed fish that you find prior to tournament day to kind of get a gauge of behavior, or are you just simply putting them on the graph and getting out?
Yeah. I'm just waypointing them and marking them and then, try to find as many as I can and come back during the tournament. And I'm going to really, during practice, that the make and break for a tournament fisherman here is how many kind of off the wall fish you can find, so, if they're bedding in the very back of the pockets, how many in the middle of the pockets, or how many out deep, or how many maybe on the main channel can you find? Because I feel like, in that first 2 hours, they're getting picked off here, especially in the big tournaments, right? They're getting picked off pretty hard. So you've got to have those 15 or 20 located in areas that the other guys aren't going to find them. If you're going to put up that 20-pound bag on Lake Norman, it's pretty easy to get that 12-pound bag, but it gets tough to get up there at 18, 20. You got to have some pretty special fish found to do that.
Yeah. I think it was the St. John's event. I want to say, quote me because I'm probably wrong here, who was talking about it. I want to say it was Polnick, but I think I'm wrong. But he basically mentioned in practice, if it's going to be a sight fishing deal, how he will take a hook off and leave a dummy with a bait and get a fish that he wants to bed fish for it in the morning. He will come in and get it fired up and then leave it. And he says that he tends to see that when he goes back to it that morning of tournament day, that it's a lot easier and faster to catch.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if that was Polnick that said it. So, again, don't quote me.
Okay.
But it was something before the St. John's River event that they were talking. It was like a little Bassmaster skit that they'll get fired up during practice and then leave them so that apparently they stay pissed off or something, like they remember that bait or something like that.
Wow. Yeah. I always like to, if I'm out on a new lake, if I see a couple of small ones, I'm going to cast them and figure out, what's the right colors and the right profiles to catch.
Mm-hmm.
Those fish, is it green pumpkin? Is it black and blue? Is it black and orange? Is it some kind of, white, something like that? But I'm not gonna fool with anything I'm gonna catch in the tournament. I'm saving those for tournament day.
Right. It's a really good point to kind of cover. Let's see. We got from Charles Blood. Is it better to use a bigger body bait on a bed or something a little more finesse? That's another really good conversation.
Oh, that right there is smart. That's yeah. Most people think you use little bitty baits. I don't. I use really, really big baits. And the guys that's fished with me and BFLs and stuff are like, I thought we were going sight fishing. I'm like, I am going sight fishing. You just didn't know it. And I'm going to use Magnum baits, really big baits.
Like a Reaction Innovation double wide.
Yeah, like a big Magnum trick worm or a even bigger, an old monster, something like that. It's crazy. Those fish will actually react better to that than if you throw. Most people are throwing these little tiny worms or little bitty crawl worms or something. I'm going to actually start with big baits. And then if they don't bite, I might go with something smaller. But I'm actually looking for that really big bait, especially early morning before you can see them good and sun hadn't come up yet. I want something with a lot of meat to it.
Heck yeah. I actually prefer, I will start with a big bait and try to get them fired up. And if they won't actually commit to it, I'll go back to a smaller bait.
Yeah, exactly.
They won't commit to it, but it changes their perception of what's coming through. And then you can go right back to that big bait and they'll eat it instantly.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, so, most people don't think they would hit those big baits, but those big baits work. I mean, it's funny. You would use a big bait if you weren't looking at them, right? And especially on places like Eufaula and those places, definitely. I mean, those huge baits work great.
There we go. Yep. Yeah. Sorry, Andy. Backlash Pro just nailed it. That was the conversation I was listening to. Now, Backlash, who posted that? Throw it in the comments. I'm trying to remember who was the source for that info. But yeah, Drew Benton and Drew Cook were talking about how they basically do that. They put on dummies and get the fish fired up for the next day. Super interesting. Yeah.
That is. That's different.
It was way off saying pollinate. Way off.
Yeah.
But let's see.
Kyle with another good question here. Do you stick with typical white bubblegum colors so you can see your bait better, or do you just go with your tried and true?
I'm going to use natural baits. I'm going to use something that matches that color of that brim or a color of crawfish, something like that. I rarely throw the whites or the bubblegums. I just don't. I'll throw, in pre-spawn maybe you'll throw like a bubblegum or something or post-spawn. But if he's on the bed, I want natural. I want something very, very natural looking. For sure.
And just real quick for Kyle there, that's 3 pretty good questions. So we're gonna hit him up with the first bag of coffee. So shoot us your address and we'll get that out to you shortly.
Cool.
Congrats, Kyle.
Yeah, congrats.
Yeah, man. Guys, there's still one more bag of Outdoorsman coffee up for grabs if you can impress Mr. Jeff Queen with your questions. So keep firing them off. Keep firing them off, guys. You guys are doing really awesome tonight. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Really quick to go back on the note that Charles Blood that we were talking about with bigger body baits. Like Andrew said, how he likes to go with something a bigger presentation to piss him off. Big swim baits as a go-to, not even to catch them, but just to get them fired up for largemouth. I don't know if you experiment with that at all, Jeff, but something that you just leave in their bed, a big intrusive bait, and you just kind of hover it and jig it, like just taking your line and just using your hand to just keep it in place. Yeah. It kind of pisses it off, and then you follow up with like a Senko, something stupid.
Yeah, I've never really done much of that. I know people that do, and it better if you need to go hookless if you're going to do that because it's just too big a risk of snagging him if you don't. I know people that throw big double jointed baits and stuff, and I fished with a guy one time that did that, and I was like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm going to show you. And yeah, we pulled up on a 6-pounder and he hooked it in the back of the head. And I said, yeah, now throw him back and cut that bait off. Don't ever do that again when you're with me. But, that's just, I can't take a chance on a snag fish, and so that's not really something I do.
That's a very good point.
It's okay if you're looking for them in practice or something, throw that big mag draft or some type of big swim bait to see them rise up. If that water's dingy, that really is necessary to get that movement so you can see him move, right?
Yeah, just show him something. You'd be like, okay, I know he's by that tree in that general vicinity.
Exactly. Especially if that water's dingy and those things are down about 3 foot deep, 4 foot deep, and you got to get him to rise just a little bit before you see him. That's very smart to do that. But again, that's just practice for me. I don't, and even then, I'm going to have my hooks with covered up where they're not going to. They may T-bone that thing. I don't want to catch them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, real quick, I was horribly wrong with my information. I had the context was correct, but it was not Polnick. It was Drew Benton and Drew Cook, and it was not a Bassmaster Skit. It was Bass Talk Live. So my apologies for that.
Well, got one of the words right. Bass.
I got Bass right. But so kind of next thing here for you, Jeff, is something I've seen people do visually that I think is kind of inefficient with how you approach the bed is they'll flip directly onto the bed versus flipping past it and then bringing it onto the bed. Are you a believer in that you're kind of being inefficient if you're just trying to just hit the bed itself, just drop it right on the bed versus try to bring it to the bed, something more subtle and natural?
Yeah, I prefer to throw it up there, let I'm going to use fluorocarbon line. I'm going to let that line sink all the way to the bottom. I want it to rest for a minute up there before I move it, right? And then I'm going to drag it as super slow as I can up there right to the edge of the bed. And, then just slowly work it across that bed. A lot of times let it sit there for, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, which will seem like 30 minutes when you're sitting there looking at a 5-pounder, right? But it's hard to slow down. A lot of people, I've seen them, they'll get too fast and that fish is fired up and they'll be hitting it. It's like, guys, you got to take your time. You got to, stop looking at the fish, look at where you're going to make your cast, then bring it back. And that's so hard to do. When you're sitting there looking at that fish, I've seen so many people hit them in the head or hit them in the tail and mess them up. I'm going to try to stop looking at the fish, look exactly where I'm going to cast, right, and make my cast. But I got to concentrate on that cast. And then you pull it back and you can look at the fish. And it's trying to train like high schoolers how to do that is the funniest thing ever and the hardest thing ever. So they're like, oh God, so you gotta don't throw it in the bed, throw it past it. Oh God, don't hit the tree above it. Whatever you do, don't hit that tree above it. It's so easy to mess them up. But a lot of fun. I've won. I've had 4 different high school tournaments where the state tournaments were during spawning season, and my team won each time that it was doing that. But that's actually how my son and Tyler Black won on Grand Lake. They were spawning there, and they just had the Federation. The Coastal was the week before, then the Federation was during the week. So when we got out there, it was like beat to shreds, and they were still able to put up 18.5 pounds a day. But it was really sneaky fishing, and you really had to use every single technique because those fish that were left had all been just messed with so much. They were really hard to catch.
Right. See, Charles Blood said, when you're fishing beds that you can't see, what's your preferred way to approach it? I believe you kind of mentioned prior in the show that you kind of say like a swim jig or a mag draft, and you kind of go around trying to find that fish, and then if something swipes at it, you turn around and kind of slow down in that general area if you can't see the bed.
Yep. And you got to really visualize where that bed's going to be at. If you're fishing like Tennessee River chain is a perfect example, right? You go there and there's going to be flooded button bushes, right? Well, that fish is going to be, that bush will be big, but that bed is going to be right next to the stalk, right? So when you're hitting that, if it's possible, you want to go past it and come right by that stalk, throw back it and let your line sink, come back by it, or either drop it straight down. And there's no need. The reason that most people, when they're spawning on Tennessee River, can't catch them, they're fishing crankbaits and spinnerbaits coming through the top of the bush or on the sides, and that fish is sitting right there next to where that stalk comes down. And so in the same way, base of a cypress tree or something like that, you're definitely going to think. You got to think about where's that fish at, and then really put that bait right there. When you can't see them, that's and take that patience too. When you throw it right next to and you get it in that sweet spot, give it that extra 10, 15 seconds, which is so hard to do. I mean, it's really hard to slow down and make yourself slow down knowing that, okay, that's where the bed should be. He's probably sitting there looking at it. And I just visualize in my mind that fish is sitting there looking at it. And it's like, okay, now barely move it and you'll feel him hit it, right? And it's just like, yep, that's the trick. I've done that a lot of lakes.
Yeah, it's like than a jerk bait.
Yep, it is. It's hard though. It's hard when you're flipping trees. Everybody wants to flip 50 times. It's like it's hard to only get in 10 flips, but it's the right 10, right? And that's the difference. It's you watch Hackney. Hackney is the freaking master at it, and you're going, man, he seems like he always puts his bait where it needs to be. Well, you'll watch him. He makes that perfect flip, and then he slows down. But then when he gets it out of that little perfect area, man, it's back in fast, and he's right back again. And people interpret that as he's fishing really fast. It's not. But when he gets it in that one little 1 foot section where that bait needs to be, Hackney will slow it down super slow and fish it just. And if you really, that's why I love watching them on live. You can learn so much from watching those guys because it's like you got to realize what he's doing. He's fishing much slower than you think he is because he looks like he's making lots of casts, but he's really just hitting that one little sweet spot over and over, and he doesn't waste any time on the non-productive. And it's just he's a master at it. He's probably the best, I think, right now on the when it comes to that kind of fishing. I think he's the best right now. That's my opinion anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's also kind of cool to kind of listen to him talking to himself too.
Oh, yeah. Talk himself through everything he's doing right on live, so you have a whole image of what's going on, what he's picturing, and what he's thinking.
Yep. And he's just, I mean, I love watching him pick it apart. It don't matter where he's at. He's just always, it's just
machine. Yep.
It's perfect. I mean, he's kind of my idol when it comes to that style. He's really good at that.
Right. Ed Doyle has an interesting question. Are you using live scope at all when you're finding these bedding fish? Maybe for those deeper or spotted bass?
Yeah, those bedding fish, like in those lakes where it's dingy and stuff, you can actually see them. You can actually see them on live scope. And I don't have that yet on my boat. I'm kind of waiting to see what the new Humminbirds look like. Then I've got to decide, am I going to go Lowrance or I just got a new boat. So it's killing me right now. I feel like I'm fishing blind out there right now. I try to take KJ's boat, but when he's gone, I don't get to use his live scope. So it's killing me right now being out there fishing blind.
I just steal it off his boat. He doesn't need it.
Yeah, he doesn't need it. He doesn't need it.
Down the elites, he doesn't need it. He's fine.
Yeah.
Let's see. Kyle Schmidt, rather than a mag draft, would you throw a jerkbait or fluke to get erratic action that you could stop to a subtle halt type movement? And that's, I think you mentioned that you throw a fluke around as well, right?
I throw a fluke a lot. I do. Right. I like a fluke when he comes up to that fluke. I love to be able to let it sink completely out of sight and then let him. A lot of times they'll follow it all the way down to the bottom and then eat it right off the bottom. Jerk bait, he'll run up to it a lot of times and look at it, but he won't take it. So,
right. And Charles asked if you'd throw a search bait between beds to find them, and that's kind of what he mentions. Like he throws around like a mag draft, swim jig, stuff to find them, and then obviously if he gets something that eats it or bumps it or whatever, he'll turn around, slow down. And keep the questions coming, guys. Mr. Jeff Queen still has a bag of coffee to give away, but I think in the meantime, something that I will love to bring up, and if you got some around behind you to show off, is the switchblade that we've really brought up on the show before.
Yeah. Let me take that real quick.
A nice shot of that Queen tackle jersey.
Who was asking? Was that Mike B a little bit ago? Mike B, this is what you want to buy.
Yeah. If you guys are tuning in right now, you guys need to check these things out because if you got a vertical line tie, you can get really creative with this stuff.
Yeah, funky.
Real funky. I'm so excited to. I've been experimenting a little bit, but not as much as I wanted to, and publicly show it. So this is going to be pretty sweet.
Yeah. So this is. See if I can get it into the camera here. This is our little switchblade. It's just we've had them out now for about a year, It's just like a vibrating jig or chatterbait type blade. It's actually got little tabs on it. See if I can get the camera right here. Right. Oh, where am I at? There we go. So you take these little tabs that come on here, and they'll actually open up. And I usually use a pair of pliers, but I'll do it with my fingers tonight. So again, those little tabs are opening up right there. And this wire that comes across will actually swing out. And you just take a swim jig, hold it upside down, put it on that wire, swing it back around, and it'll drop right in the holes. Of course, I'm trying to do it out away from my body.
I'm going to copy a link. I did a full video on how to actually install this in a jig. Yep. I'll put the link to that video into the chat for you guys here.
So what you've got is when you're finished is, hold that. There we go. You'll actually have made yourself a chatterbait, right? I'll say a vibrating jig. It's not a chatterbait. It's a switchblade. Mm-hmm. And I say, what's the difference of that? When we designed this blade, we actually made it such that the movement of the jig or the swim bait or whatever you're putting it on, right? We put these on Alabama rigs. We put it on a lot of different things. It actually will entice the bait to swim. So as that blade's moving back and forth, you get a lot more swimming action out of your jig. So we actually don't recommend putting a boot tail on here because on other baits, that boot tail is what gives the action to the jig, right? On ours, you want more of a straight tail. You want something like a swim on from Big Bite Baits, or you want even like a fighting frog turned upright, a fluke turned upright. Jinko's makes a 5-inch. What do they call that? They're 5-inch with just like the little straight tail. That's what KJ used on Pickwick. In fact, he used this color. Scott Martin, he actually ran out of these during the tournament and stopped KJ on the water and said, "Hey KJ, I got to have more switchblades." And he was actually using this the large gold switchblade on a glimmer blue jig. And these are on our tungsten heads. So for a while there, you could buy the tungsten bladed jigs. They were like $30 or $40. Now you can buy the blades and then the tungsten jig, and you get that really loud sound hitting that tungsten head. Used to could get them out of Japan, and they were banned from actually coming into the United States. They were violating some patents, so they banned them. You can't get them anymore. Now you can make your own. You can buy the Queen Tackle switchblade, make your own. We put them on a lot of swim bait heads. We put them on underspins. Really, really good on the underspin. They work really, really well. Put them on there. Put you a big swim bait on there, and so it's really, really nice little product that we've come out with.
Heck yeah,
yeah.
I love those things. Playing around with those. And real quick for the folks that are watching, how crucial is it to you with pairing up that jig head with a specific trailer, like a boot tail or a straight tail?
Yeah. If I wouldn't put a boot tail on there because it's gonna it will actually contradict against the swimming action of the blade. So if you're gonna do it, use more of a straight tail type lure. Like the swim on works perfect on it. But then you can use like a rage crawl. They work really well. You can use any of your like
Strike King's got a really good one. I can't remember the actual name of it.
Yeah, they do.
Is it the Space Monkey?
Yeah. Space Monkey would work perfect on it. It'd work great on there, right? And anything that you can turn it either way. Like sometimes we'll turn it up, like if we're using like a rage crawl, we'll leave it just like we would on a jig, right? But then if we're using like the swim on or something, it turns up sideways, and then you get that swimming action, and it actually creates that really cool looking swimming action. What's really cool about these is you can buy gold or black mirror or silver blades, either regular size or large, And then whatever jigs you're pouring yourself, you're doing your own swim jigs and stuff. These things will clip right on them. Really easy, convenient way without spending a lot of money, create your own vibrating jigs. And then, if you got your own special color, I've had people say, hey, I've got a June bug one here that's got a little bit of yellow in it, and nobody else makes this kind of jig. And they're up there on the Potomac just crushing them on it. And everybody else is throwing, some kind of black chatterbait, not getting a bite. And so that's really cool. It gives you an opportunity to, wide span of colors, sizes, different shapes. I just think that's cool. I think today these fish are so pressured around here that you got to really key on something just slightly different. I mean, just a little difference can make a world of difference out there. And so you just keep experimenting with different things. And I know when KJ and Dax E were in college, KJ was like, Daddy, you can't even come out with these things until after we get through with our college career, because that's what they were catching all of their. I mean, they finished their worst finish was actually on the St. Lawrence, and that's when they finished 22nd up there on the St. Lawrence. But they never finished out of the top 20 except for that tournament all year. And in almost every tournament, the switchblade played a big part of their bag in some way or another. They had a couple of fish weighed in, some of their bigger fish, during every single tournament that they fished that year. And they were team of the year, Bassmaster team of the year.
Yeah, you put me onto that big bite baits, the Kamikaze Swim On, and paired with the Cream Tackle Swim Jig and a switchblade, I've never seen a chatterbait hunt that much.
No.
And that was what's so cool, because you could manipulate that so well and control it so well. That's what I personally love about it a lot. And I think this is important to touch upon too, is Joseph Ferrara asked, have you ever bent out one of those blades? That's probably a first question I think a lot of people would have.
Yeah, it actually, once they cinch down on there, they're pretty tight. They, once, make sure you get the little tabs down really tight so there's not a lot of movement on that attachment wire. Once you do that, the weakest part of this switchblade is actually your clip-on. It's where you tie. It's actually this part
where you line tie.
Yeah, the line tie. That's actually the weakest part. So you get hung up with braid and you're pulling, that's the part that's going to give first. We caught 50-pound catfish, blue channel catfish on them, and no problem at all getting them in the boat. I got a lot of guys that are fishing for muskie with them up north right now. And so, they're catching big muskie on them. I got other people down south fishing redfish, catching big redfish on them. So, they don't have any problems holding up. They're pretty stout.
Nice. Yeah. Well, we have a question here from Mike B, and he's putting you on the spot here, Jeff.
Okay.
And he said, if you could only fish with 2 color swim jigs, what color skirt would you go with? And yes, this will determine which colors I buy to pair with the switchblade.
Oh. So if it's that's a tough question. So I've won a ton of night tournaments, and at night I'm just going to use that black magic. I want just a straight black with a little blue and green flake in it. That's my go-to at night and muddy water. And then if it's clear, I'm probably going to use that blue glimmer. I love the blue glimmer if you have gizzard shad in your lake. If you got the big gizzard shad that, like on the Tennessee River, that gizzard, that blue glimmer matches those gizzard shads the best. I mean, it really does. It's been our go-to for a long time.
I will say that I throw that black magic swim jig up here, even in that clear water, with a green pumpkin trailer, because it represents a bluegill so well.
Yeah.
Sorry, Andrew, I'm letting the cat out of the bag. I've sent Jeff multiple pictures.
And it really depends. I got a guy that right now, and he's probably going to kill me for this. I won't throw out names, but he's fishing out in Texas right now. And he has created his own version of like a firecracker, or that red and orange. And he's using that red and orange looking swim on. And every stinking day, he's sending me pictures of anywhere from 5 to 8 pounders. I mean, it's just like every day. And they're choked all the way down. And I'm like, all right, I got to come do that. But he actually took tungsten head, but he's retying it he's tying his own skirts up. And I'm like, you got to send me those skirts. He's like, not a chance. Not a chance. It's not, because he knows I'll put it in production. But I'm like, no, I won't put it in production. I'll fish it just for myself. But yeah, it's his own version of what he's come up with, and he's absolutely crushing them.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to fish it for myself. It definitely won't be on the website tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Be a millionaire overnight.
Yep. Yeah, I got a guy up on the Potomac that's doing the same thing with some kind of June bug. He's using like green and a purple with a little bit of green flake in it. And it's a craziest color looking jig. And he is crushing them on the Potomac doing that same thing. So
that's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what's kind of cool about this. You know, you can take your own little jigs and put that blade on there, you know, or if you pour your own swim baits, you can use your own swim baits and stuff. It's kind of cool. I like that. I've done that for years. I've played around with all my baits for years and years and years. And so it's kind of a neat little trick to create your own. And I don't know, it feels pretty special too when you create your own little thing. You go out there and then you win about 5 or 6 tournaments in a row and you're like, yep, I'm the man. I did this. I created it. You know, it really is pretty cool. You know,
Attaboy.
Yeah. It's like, yeah,
that's awesome.
Everybody's looking in your boat and you're like, yep, it's in the box, boys. It's not coming out after we blast off.
One rod has a bait.
Yep. I'll have like 6 rods laid out and it's like, yep, but that one, it's got that special one on it. It's in the box. It's not coming out. That motor stops.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So Jeff, on your end, can you see the comments coming through here? I believe you can from the spectator side of things.
Yeah.
Okay. So
no, I can't see them. No.
Oh, you can't? Okay.
You might have a private side on the StreamYard app, or are you on your phone?
No, I'm on the I'm on my computer.
So there's like a chat box on the right. Do you have it in full screen or?
No, I don't, but it doesn't. Oh, there they are. I can see them. I can see them now. I had to click on it. It went from private chat to comments. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So Jeff, I have a project for you. Andy and I are going to tackle this last question here from Kyle, and you're going to choose one question that you think is your favorite question of the night, and that person's going to win that last bag of Outdoorsman coffee.
Oh,
Sound good?
Sounds
give me
good.
some homework.
It can't be Kyle because he's already won. So good luck.
Yeah.
So Andrew, this last question from Kyle Schmidt is: do you Alabama shake your swim jig, or do you just slow roll it, or does it depend on what you're fishing? And Kyle, I think and obviously Andrew can have a complete opposite answer to me. From my personal opinion, let the fish tell you. Play around with it. I kind of start aggressive, and if they're not eating it right, or if I notice followers, maybe I'll slow roll it, something a little bit more subtle. But let the fish tell you what they want. Andrew, what do you think?
I agree. With the swim jig, I always start fast and kind of slow down. Mm-hmm. And usually when I fish it in New York, it's under and around docks. So you can do all 3 presentations and figure it out pretty fast on the same cast.
Mm-hmm. I think, and also to be said too, I usually don't start with a swim jig a lot. I'll start with if I'm around a lot of timber, I'll start with a swim jig just because a chatterbait just doesn't fare well around timber with wood in general. But I'll start with like a switchblade and then work my way to a swim jig if I think that they need something a little bit more subtle, but also still moving. But Jeff, what do you think?
I'm sorry, I was looking at all the comments.
You Alabama jig or just slow roll your swim jig?
Yeah, I'm gonna probably slow roll it.
Slow roll it?
Yeah. I'm moving. I'm just gonna. I want to bring it up and then let it fall a little bit. Bring it up. I'm doing a little bit of yo-yoing as I go in that swim jig. I think that big one likes to follow it just for a second. Then when it falls back, to me triggers that bite. So I'm constantly trying to change the speed a little bit up, then let it fall, up, then let it fall. That's the way I'm gonna
evading
swim jig. Yeah.
Very interesting. But yeah, guys, like we were talking about with that switchblade, I threw in that YouTube link there in the comments. So if you guys want to see, like Jeff just put one together, but if you want to see another one put together kind of with the nice camera and everything.
Yeah.
You guys can go click on that link and see how that's done up close with pliers and all. Right there in the comments for you. What does Kyle have here?
How does bedfish and being pressured affect their spawning process?
Yeah, that's a really good question. 30 years ago when we first started doing this, boy, you didn't even talk about that you caught one off the bed, right? It was like taboo to talk about that. I think there's been a lot of studies done and over the years, and those fish that get caught off the bed, they'll go back and spawn. They just pick up a new bed somewhere and they'll spawn. I think that, I think when it's the worst is like whenever they've just spawned out and you see them get caught and you see the gobies or the bluegill come rush in and eat the eggs. There's no doubt that does hurt, right? That's not good on the fish. You're typically not catching the female at that point. You're catching the buck off, and then as that buck gets jerked off, there's nothing there to protect that bed.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a cycle of nature that to me, I wouldn't want to do it all the time. I think that I don't think it hurts a lot of them, but I do think that there are some times that it does hurt a little bit to catch them off the bed.
Right.
It's funny though, because the areas that are lakes that tend to put an off limits time on that. Years ago, they did this a lot more than they do now, but there used to be periods when lakes would go completely off limits for like 2 or 3 months during the spawning period. And those neighboring lakes wouldn't do that. And the neighboring lakes where people were sight fishing had just as many fish, just as big a fish as the ones that had the off limits period. So I'm not sure that there's a lot, there was never I've never ever seen a conclusive study that said it seriously damaged the lake, right? That's just not, I've just never seen that. And there's been a lot of attempts by a lot of people to prove that it really harms the lake. I don't think you can harm the lake, but yeah, you can harm an individual bed, no doubt.
Right. Yeah, Charles Blood, and just to quickly add on that, Jeff, he's asking what your opinion is on taking bedding fish to weigh-ins instead of doing an MLF style, if that could have any impact.
Yeah, I think MLF is definitely a breakthrough there where they're able to catch it and release that fish right back. That to me is, I wish all tournaments could be done that way. Of course, our little local tournaments and stuff, there's no way we'll ever be able to set that up. But definitely, I definitely think the pros of, I would like to see it even on the Bassmaster side where there was some way that they could weigh that fish. But
it would be cool. Yeah, it would be really cool to see. And I know some people agree, disagree, and that's fine. But I agree, and I think it would be cool to see bass do almost kind of like a mix, especially during a spawn time frame, where they do like a Texas Fest style, where they bring in one that's over a certain slot limit or maybe their biggest fish, whatever have you, like that over that certain inch mark.
Yeah.
Say like a share lunker, right, or whatever that Texas does that they apply, and basically, you only bring in maybe that fish and everything else that you throw back after you weigh it on the boat.
Right, right. And some of these fish are getting caught. It's kind of, you go to some of these lakes and you watch these big tournaments and they're running 75 to 100 miles up back into this one area, and you look and there's like 25 boats up there, and they're completely wiping out a whole backwater area from catching almost every fish that lives in there, and then hauling them back 100 miles back to some weigh-in somewhere. And that's, I don't know, that's got to be tough on those fish. Some of them run through the sounds and everything else to get back, to some river or something.
Yeah.
When they were down here in South Carolina, they're running out of one river and running all the way up into another river, running down the intercoastal waterway.
Yeah.
And, so it'd be kind of neat to see those fish released back where they're caught.
The fish at Gunnersville, the Classic last year, that had to be driven 45 minutes from the lake to the weigh-in stage.
That's hard on those fish. Now, I know we all enjoy those weigh-ins and stuff too. So it is a show, right? It's the bass fishing show. So it's a little bit tricky there, but
it's tough.
it's a tough call. It really is. It's a tough call.
Yeah, that's why we don't make the big decisions. We just talk about them.
No, we just talk about them, and it makes for good conversations to sit around though and ask that. That's
exactly. Heck yeah. Well, Jeff, do you have your winner? Do you have?
Yeah, I think so. And so Charles Blood participated a lot tonight. Probably the question that I felt like I give away the biggest secret on, which is when it comes to, do you use a bigger body bait on the bed or do you use a finesse bait? I don't tell many people that I use a big bait, right? That's almost everybody uses finesse, and I don't. I go the absolute opposite of that. And I think that's probably the biggest secret thinking tonight of what I give away. Even though the question may have seemed pretty benign, that one probably hurt me the worst to have to answer honestly tonight.
Well, congratulations, Charles. You've won yourself a bag of Outdoorsman coffee. And Charles, actually I think I have you in Messenger anyways, as it is, or Instagram. Charles joined us on our 200th episode. He joined us in live.
Oh,
so
cool.
Charles will be sending that your way. Congratulations again. And let's see, we got anything else here from the folks? Well, dude, Jeff, we just want to say, obviously, thank you for taking the time out of your night. We're going on almost an hour and a half here. Much longer than we had anticipated, and I think it's just because the conversation of bed fishing is just there's so much that can go into it.
So many tricks.
Exactly. There's so many variables that can actually apply, and it's pretty awesome. So we appreciate you taking the time. We appreciate you not only taking the time to come out tonight and in prior, but also for supporting our show day in, day out. So we appreciate you and the things you do for us.
Yes, sir. Yeah, you guys have got it going on. It's a cool podcast. Really, really enjoy it. My problem is I get hooked on it. I'll start listening. And I'll listen, string off about 6 or 8 in a row, and it's like, oh my God, where'd my day go? It's kind of cool that you guys have 200 episodes that you can listen to. It's like never-ending good content. Learn a lot from it. You really do.
Yeah, it's kind of cool because every person we have on literally gives up like one piece of juice.
Yeah.
So and you have to listen because it could either be in the first 5 minutes or at 1 hour and 12 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's always juice. That is
100%.
It's the little things too. That's what makes those guys at the top the best. They have that little bit of something that's different.
Yeah.
So it's really cool.
You can always tell too in the YouTube video because you get their head to turn. There's like, all right, I guess.
Yeah.
One of my favorite ones was when we had Buddy Gross on, and I asked him, I said, when you're graphing for fish on ledges, do you get on the bar or are you off the bar? And he goes, you've been doing your research.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's painful to give those up because you're like, oh God, everybody else is doing it that way. I don't know if I want to say that or not.
Yeah.
Putting them on the spot. Yeah.
It is. It's cool.
We try to do it in the most.
You guys do good. Y'all drag it out of them pretty well. About the best around. I've watched some of them guys dance around the questions. Y'all drill down. You do a great job of getting there.
Hammer it in. Let's go.
Yeah.
We appreciate it, Jeff, and we're looking forward to getting you obviously back on and more shows and getting KJ when he's done running around the country on his first year of the Elite. So we'll get him back on and dive into more stuff. And dude, we appreciate you, and we won't keep you any longer here tonight. So have a good one. We'll talk soon.
Have a good one, guys.
See ya.
Great joining you. See you.
Always good having Jeff on the show. Guys, for real though, Queen Tackle and Jeff and KJ have been huge supporters of the show since almost day one. I want to say it's been almost a year, if not over a year already, that we've been partnered with Queen Tackle, and it's been actually unbelievable. And it's been something that, like Andy, we did a show a while ago before 2021 of our confidence baits from this past year, and the hammerhead jig was my number one. And that's not just because of a selfless plug. That was legit the bait I had the most confidence in going into the new year.
Bailey actually outfished me with that hammerhead jig, which was surprising.
Surprising? Get out of here, man.
Surprising. I have all my little tricks that I do to get outfished by something. It just speaks volumes to how good the product is from really great people, a great fishing family. So They really make superior products.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool. Like, we were talking offline here, the Let's Talk Fish episode, that Thrift and Airy do. And they had Jeff and KJ on, and something that KJ spoke about was testing that tungsten, that knock in that hammerhead, the actual jig head, where they have the tungsten beads in there that make noise to kind of replicate that crawdad. And the time that they put in just to replicate that sound and get that sound right, that's a lot. That speaks volumes of the product that they're putting into and the value that they put into it, because it's not something they're putting out there to make money to kind of catch the eye of the angler. They're putting that product out there to make you money, to catch you fish, to put something out there that's different than the rest. But
Absolutely.
All in all, tonight was an amazing show talking about fishing the spawn, fishing for bass on bed. I hope you guys learned a lot. Thank you so much for coming out every Monday night, and you guys pump out some amazing questions. It's cool to see you guys getting so into the episode as much as Andrew and I are. So, as always, we appreciate you guys. I know the folks tuning right now are watching on YouTube, but if you're listening to this on a podcast app, especially Apple Podcasts, please leave a review. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. But if you guys are on MP3, you're listening to this at a later date, please leave us a review, a rating, whether horrible or good. We appreciate it nonetheless. We love the feedback, and it helps us out. It helps us get noticed a little bit more, which helps us put out better content for you guys.
Oh, yeah.
Andy, anything else for the folks before we sign off here tonight? Any open dates that people can take advantage of if they want to catch some big old Lake Erie bass?
So the season's just getting going. Now you're going to make me think.
Oh, no. He has to use his brain, folks.
20th, 22nd, and 23rd open in April. The bite is just starting to get going. Got out Saturday for 3 hours with a good buddy of mine, and we caught over 20 fish, and they were all over 4 pounds. So that was a good time. I got a couple days in May. June, I'm pretty booked. July, I think I'm pretty booked. And then we're starting to look into like August, September on some Sundays. So,
heck yeah.
Just a couple days open. If you guys want to get in, shoot me a message either on the Serious Angler page or my personal page. And usually what I do is I'll just give you my phone number and we'll text because it's way easier. So, yeah.
Well, folks, as always, we appreciate you. We have some good episodes coming up here soon. Wednesday is with Bassmaster Open winner Keith Tuma. We had Keith on as well, and Keith might be a future host, apparently, as things have gone.
No, let's rephrase. He hosted that podcast.
He hosted the show. It was a pre-recorded show we did. It's scheduled for Wednesday, so you guys can listen to that one. But it was an absolute riot with Keith. You guys are really going to enjoy that one. And we got some kayak guys coming up after Keith. We have Adam Reiser and Jake Harshman, who are two really notable names in the kayak realm of things that do very well and for a good reason. So we're going to if you guys are kayak guys out there, or if you just kind of like talking about practice strategy in general, or you want to learn more about kayak fishing, those are going to be two really good episodes to tune into, and we're really excited to get that rolling. So, but I think without further ado, we're going to sign off here tonight. As always, folks, we appreciate you, and we'll see you guys on Wednesday.
Oh, yeah.